Now, for the remainder of this session, I'm just going to go through some more modeling tools that I think will be useful for you. And the first of those is using Booleans inside 3ds Max. So I've got two objects, and I've got a sphere basically and a cube. And basically what Booleans are is we can use the sphere to remove a section from the cube here. So the way that it works is I select the cube and then I come over to the create panel, and then I'm going to use this drop down here. So I don't think we've used this yet, but you click on it and you come to compound objects. And there's actually two options. There's a Boolean and a pro Boolean, and basically in most cases the pro Boolean is better, so we may as well go for the pro Boolean. So let's click on pro Boolean, and you'll see that there's a option here saying start picking. And what we want to do is click on that and then click on the object we want to remove from the initial object. So I click on that, and you'll see that it's now removed the sphere from my cube. And if I look at the wireframe mode, you can see that we've got the wireframe for the sphere in there. So that's a really useful tool that you can use for creating various objects by removing some objects from others. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is the modifiers you can use in 3ds Max. So these are a bit like like filters that you can apply to an object that will kind of affect the whole of the object. They're all over here in the modify tab, but let's create an object first so that I can show you how they work. And basically, when you apply a modifier, you want to make sure that you're not in like vertex or edge or polygon mode. So just click on that again to come out of that. You want to make sure that you're in object mode. And what you'll do now is you can go down, you can click on this, this drop down here in the modify panel. And there are a huge load of different modifiers that we can apply. And I'm not going to be able to show you all of these, but I'm just going to show you a couple basically of the most useful ones. So the one we'll look at first is the bend modifier. Now, for this to work, we need to actually add more edges to our object. So you can see that when I clicked on the vertice thing, it added a thing called an edit poly here. But what I want to do is I'm going to go back to the original kind of box here and just add in some more width sections and some length sections. And I'm going to add in a lot, but you may not need as many as this. As a general rule, try and keep the extra edges you add to a minimum. But just to show you how the bend works, I'm going to include a lot here. So now let's click on the list here and let's go to the bend modifier. Here we go. And what I'll do is I will increase the angle, and you can see that now I'm getting a nice kind of bend on this object. Now obviously if I didn't have this many kind of segments in it, it wouldn't be able to bend it, because obviously with 3D we can't get a bend without that kind of geometry in there. But we can change the direction of that as well, and we can also change the axis that it's bending around here. So sometimes you'll do it and you'll find it's not doing the right result, and you can simply change the axis that it's bending around. You can also open up the bend modifier and click on the gizmo, and that will then allow you to kind of change where the center of the bend takes place from. So that's also a useful feature there. Now another really useful modifier is the mirror modifier. So that will allow you to kind of create one half of the model and then have it mirrored over to the other side, which will obviously save you time while you're creating your objects. So to add that, we'll make sure we have the object selected, and again we'll go into the modifier list, and if you know the name of the modifier you want, you can simply type it in. So you can scroll through and find it, but it's much quicker if I just type in MIR, and then here we've got the mirror modifier comes up. So let's click on that. Now the default settings are a bit strange because it doesn't actually create a copy, it just kind of mirrors your object. So 9 times out of 10 you'll want to come in here and click on copy, and now you see we have the original copy and the mirror, and normally that's kind of what you'll want. Now you can change the axis that it mirrors across by clicking on these buttons here. So, but in my case, let's have a look. Which one do I want? I want I think this one, that's right. But you'll see that it's mirroring it from the center of the object. And if I want to mirror it from like the origin of the scene, what I need to do is go in and click on the mirror center, and then I can drag where it mirrors it from over to the middle of the scene here. If you want to be precise about it, let's go to the front view, or the top view will do. And I can turn on snaps. So we haven't used this yet, but this is this little toggle here will snap my whatever I've got selected to the grid points basically. So here we go. You'll see that it's snapping now, and I just remember I go in and turn it off once I've done that. So now I have a nicely mirrored object that is you know, the mirror image of this object here. Great, so I just wanted to show you a few more of the modeling, polygon modeling tools. So if we click on like vertice, edge, or face, that will open up all these. And I can't go through all of them because there's a lot of them. So what I'd really recommend you do is just try to experiment and find out what they do basically. But I'm going to show you kind of like maybe a couple more of the most useful ones. So we looked at extrude previously. If I go to polygon mode and select this, we already looked at how we can extrude using the shift key. But there is also a extrude option here, and there's actually a few more options if we do it this way. So the best thing to do is to click on the arrow and then go to extrude settings, and that will give us all these options here. And what we can do is we can then, in fact what I'll do is I'll just hold down Control and select 2 polygons, and now we can kind of drag out and we get a few more options as to how this works. So if I click on the top one, I can change whether it's kind of extruding like this or like this. Normally the first one or the last one are probably going to be the ones you want, but it can also extrude like this. And you can be very precise about the amount that it actually extrudes here. And I'm just going to try and see what this one does. I don't actually know. Okay, there we go. So we can also adjust the angle of the central part here as well. Now, once you're happy with that, just click on the tick box, and that will then actually make that happen. So if I was to, before I clicked on the tick, if I was to click on another polygon, it would kind of only affect the polygons I've got selected. So I could kind of change the polygons that are selected midway through doing this, but it's only when you click on the tick box that it actually kind of gets entered into a kind of thing that's actually happened. So another useful setting is tool is the chamfer, which is a bit like the kind of the bevel if you've used other packages. So to use that, we need to go into the edge mode here, and then select an edge. And then if I click on chamfer, I can click on the little arrow and again click on the chamfer settings. And now we can kind of choose the amount of the bevel, and we can also increase the amount of the number of segments that are beveled. Again, I think just going to go in here and have a look at seeing the different settings. I think uniform is the kind of standard one here. I think you can affect the amount it actually gets beveled with this one, and again these settings will change various attributes, so it's worth just going in and playing with these. Again, once you're finished, make sure you click on the tick box before you go and select anything else, otherwise the chamfer will be applied to those other edges. So I'll click on the tick, and now that has been done. Now sometimes you might find that you want to delete an edge, and in order to do that, if you select the edge and then just hit the delete key, you'll find that it actually deletes the whole polygon, so that's not going to work for us. So what you'll need to do is select the edge that you want to delete, and then if you come over here, there's a remove one here. Let's just give that a go and see if that's working. And when I go on to so you'll see that's not actually the correct one, because when I did that, it's left these vertices behind. So let's press undo and go back to the edge mode, and let's just find the right one here. Okay, so it's under the loops setting. My screen's a little bit kind of minimized here, but if I was to let's say drag this out then yours should probably look something like this. So rather than remove under edges, it's actually under loops. And if I click on that, now you'll see that if I go to vertex mode, let's just go this back, that it has actually removed the vertices as we wanted it to. Now, last week we looked at the Swift Loop tool for adding extra edges. But if you remember, that doesn't actually work on polygons which have more than or less than 4 sides. So here it doesn't work with the middle of the cylinder, but there is a alternative we can use. So if I select 2 edges here, so let's just come out of the Swift Loop tool, I'll right click to exit the Swift Loop tool, and then I'll select this edge here, and then maybe this edge over here. And we can come in and we can use the connect tool here. So it's under loops, I click on connect, and that will then create a edge that runs between the 2, and it puts it exactly 50% of the way between the 2 vertices. And if you wanted to, let's say, have one that goes all the way around, a bit like the Swift Loop tool, I could just go in and select these all these edges here. Just go into wireframe mode so I can see them. So I press F3 to go into wireframe mode and F3 to exit it. And then I'll go in and do connect again. And now I've got an edge that runs all the way around my cylinder. Now, if you wanted to actually attach these objects together to make them into a single object, we could just, as we showed you earlier, drag and drop these to make them one of them a child of the other. But we may not want to do that because we might want them both to be kind of just one object. So the way that we do that is we can use the attach option here. So if you select one of the objects, and you can be either in object mode or in vertice or edge or face mode, and we go to attach, and now what we do is just click on the second object, and then we can right click to finish using the tool, and you'll see that now basically these have both been joined together. So they are now one object. So when I say they've been joined together, obviously in the viewport they don't look any different. They're not like physically joined together, but they are treated as one object as far as 3ds Max is concerned. So if I was to now rotate this, the whole thing would rotate. If I was to select it, both cubes will be selected, although they're really one object now. And if I was to assign a material to this, the material will be assigned to the whole thing. Okay, so the very final thing I'm going to show you today is how we can deal with making objects appear kind of smooth or like this one with kind of flat faces. So basically, these 2 objects are identical in terms of the actual kind of geometry here. So if I look at it in the edge face mode, they look very similar, but you'll see that when I go into shaded mode, this one's being rendered kind of differently to this one. So this one's got, it's basically what 3ds Max is doing is treating this surface like a smooth surface. It's called Gorad shading, and it basically, it kind of blends between the shading values for each of these faces to make it look smoother. And sometimes you'll want that and sometimes you won't. So it's very useful to be able to control how that works. So normally if I was to create a cone, then it would by default have that kind of shading on the side of the cone, but it hasn't got it over here where the edge is here. So you can control that by basically going into the let's say selecting the object, and we'll go into face mode. Now sometimes you'll find this, when you click on this, you'll find that it's not selecting it, and what I found works when that happens is just to click on this modify mode here to turn it into edit poly mode. I'm not entirely sure why that happens, but what you'll find is now I can actually select the object, and it's working okay. So once I've kind of clicked in, I can click back out again, and I've got all these options here. So now I can either go to hard edges, and that's going to make all of the edges hard, or I can go to smooth, and it's going to kind of smooth all of the edges like this. But the most useful one is smooth 30, and what that does is it will look at the angle that the edges are, and if it's over 30 degrees it will turn it into a hard edge, but if it's below 30 degrees like here, it will turn it into a smooth edge like this. And generally that's the kind of the most useful one that you'll want. Okay, so very final tip here. One thing that's quite useful in 3ds Max is that if you want to select what's called an edge loop, like this row of edges running around this cylinder here, you can just double click on it and that will select the whole edge loop. Now the only trouble is, if you come to like the top of this cylinder and I double click here, that doesn't work because for the edge loop thing to work, both polygons either side need to be four-sided basically. And this is not a four-sided polygon, it's got a lot of sides. However, if you want to quickly go around and select these, there is another way. So what I can do, I can go to the polygon select mode, and then I can select the polygon. And now, if I hold down the Shift key and click on the edges now with the Shift key held down, it will convert that polygon selection into the edges basically that are around that polygon. And now I've got all the appropriate edges I want selected. Okay, so your assignment for this week is basically going to be the same as it's been previously, to create another object using 3ds Max. This time I want you to use the hierarchies we discussed. So for example, you might decide to go in and create something like this tank. And you can see what I've done here is basically I've set this up in a hierarchy. So everything is underneath the hull, this object here, and then the top part is the gun is a child of this top cylinder here. So I've got everything kind of set up nicely in a hierarchy. I'd also like you to use one of the modifiers. So it can be any modifier, but it could be, for example, the bend modifier we talked about. So here, I can use the bend modifier to create this nice bend here, or the mirror modifier. So again, I use the mirror modifier here to create the mirror image on the other side. And then I also want you to add a proper material to it. So just as we described, pressing the M key to open up the material editor and assigning a proper material. And then finally, start trying to use some of the modeling techniques we were talking about. So here, for example, I've just got a kind of a straight cylinder, but on this one I've gone in and I've chamfered the edge a little bit. So go in, maybe I'd carry on, and I'd go in and I'd chamfer these edges here, and then chamfer all the edges here, just give it a little bit more kind of, realism. And of course, remember to keep on uploading this to the development journal. So please make sure you include work in progress shots and descriptions of what you're doing, as well as a final render of the final thing. And if you want to light it as well, like we showed last week, you can do that as well. That's an optional extra thing that would also be great to see. I will just finally say that actually, with these challenges, I'm kind of less concerned with the end result and more concerned with the fact that you're getting the opportunity to actually practice using the tools and the things that we've shown you in the workshop. So that's really the whole aim of these challenges, is to get you actually using, the different things we've discussed in the workshop and get you kind of, familiar with how they work, and also remembering how they work, so you can, keep that knowledge with you for next time. So what you model can be super simple. That's absolutely fine, just as long as you are getting the opportunity to practice using the tools.